Expect the president's going to address this controversy about revealing Bush's so-called torture secrets?
I don't think he'll address it properly. I noticed that during your break you showed a reenactment of waterboarding. The new information that came out in these memos is that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was waterboarded something like 186 times, in addition to being the 9/11 mastermind.
So what does it say? It doesn't
I think
work.
what you needed to show, and what the president needs to address, is that this is also the guy that kidnapped Danny Pearl, United States journalist, slit his throat, decapitated him, and yet we don't see that preceding any information about what waterboarding is. We've really lost a lot of our memory since the early days after 9/11, and I think that's a shame, and I think it's dangerous.
All right, Cheri. David, give it a crack.
Well, I mean, just because one terrorist did something bad doesn't mean that we should be violating the law, that we should be stretching the law. We're a country that's supposed to respect the rule of law. If you waterboard somebody 183 times, you can be pretty confident that what he's going to tell you might not have a lot of credibility. And the point here is to restore that credibility and restore the rule of law. I think the president was right to release these memos, absolutely.
Hey, David, let me ask you something. This is about transparency in many ways. And if any show on this network, and possibly many others, stands for transparency, it's us. That's what social media is all about, talking to people, talking truth. But is this president, with his whole transparency agenda, maybe a little bit ahead of the curve politically, if you know what I mean?
Well, I see what you're saying, but I don't think he is. What I think is that we're a country that suffers from too little transparency in our government, not too much. The president made promises to make this government one of the most, if not the most, transparent in history, and I think he's just fulfilling a campaign promise. I think the public wants to know. The public has a right to know.
You know what? You just said a mouthful. He's fulfilling a campaign promise, and that's all this is about. It's about his own personal PR. He's putting this country
making
at risk
a promise, doing what he promised to do.
The only transparency here is transparency to our enemies, who now know exactly what we will and won't do, and I think this puts the country at grave danger.
That information was already out in the public. That information was already out.
Most of it was, but you know what? It didn't.
It was already out.
It didn't have the stamp of approval from the President of the United States by him.
The information was already out. You said our enemies learned something from him, but the information was already out in the public.
The information was already out in the public, but now they know for absolute certain what we will and won't do. That puts all of us at risk.
So they didn't know for certain when it was reported in the New Yorker and the New York Times, and when it was reported in the New York Review of Books. They didn't know then. They're just that stupid.
All right, let me.
They were using it for training
guys, I got to stop you. That he got an extraordinarily rousing applause at the very beginning from these folks. Well, how do you explain that?
Well, as he mentioned several times, this is a young crowd, so it was certainly his demographic from the campaign. But I would expect anytime any president of the United States goes and speaks to government employees, we saw the same response that the military gave to President Bush many, many times. So I think it would be a little bit strange if any president did not get a very welcoming reception from.
But David, did you think that was it almost seemed like it wasn't a polite applause. It seemed like it was, well, you describe it. I'll be the journalist here. You tell me.
Boisterous?
Yeah, there you go.
It sounded boisterous and raucous, and I think deservedly so. And I think the president's message of appreciation and of thanks, and putting, by the way, the context of his decisions to release these memos in the context of the CIA's mission, I think was right on point. I mean, he really, really made the point that what he's done and what he's doing by outlawing torture is good for the agency and good for the country. And I think that was a very, very smart way that he put it.
Let me quote him, Cheri. It seemed like he was probably watching our newscast before he started talking. He said, I watched the cable shows. I almost felt like he was listening to our discussion. And who knows, he may very well have been listening on Sirius Radio or something in the car on the drive over there.
I have a few more things I can say to him.
Well, fine. But here's what I think he was saying to you and others who disagree with him. And I'll quote him here. He says, we should uphold our ideas when it's hard, not when it's easy. He seemed to be saying that those who equate idealism with naivety are wrong. Are you?
No, and he also is lumping everybody who agrees that there is an occasional and a very important need for what we term as torture for these interrogation messages is somehow not upholding the ideals. We have a president, our last president, who went out as an unpopular president, but when he was taking very strong measures against the terrorists, he was the most popular president in history. He kept us safe for 9 years, and for how many years it was since 9/11, and now we have a very popular president who's popular personally going in and sort of riding that wave of optimism, and we've been kept safe, so we've been lulled into a bit of a sense of false security. I think he is putting us at danger. I don't think President Obama means to, but I do think that there's some very, very good arguments for those out there who are nervous about the fact that he seems a bit naive, and I think that their fears cannot be just written off as being unfounded.
You know, you got to be careful with that. He kept us safe for 9 years, though, because as I recall, there was an attack on 9/11 that happened under not Clinton's watch, but President Bush's watch, right?
Well, and he had been in office for only a few months, and I think that the response was swift.
He'd been given memos,
it was strict.
warning them about the attacks.
It was a very, very swift and hard response, which the American people supported wholeheartedly. I am glad.
Just want to be fair about that.
I just want to say that if we were going to have Barack Obama be president at any time, you know, over the course of a few decades, I would rather he be there now rather than him having been our president in 9/11.
Well, I get it.
You mean like a first-term Texas governor who was warned about the attacks through memos and ignored them?
We'll stop you there. David Sirota, he's a syndicated columnist who's joining us, and at least on this occasion, defending the president's positions, because I've also seen, David, you in the past be very critical of this president. But on this occasion, you seem to be saying what?
Well, I think on the issue of the CIA memos, I think he was right. I think it fulfilled his campaign promise to be the most transparent administration in history. I think that a lot of the information, as he said, that he has released is already out in the public, and so why not fulfill a campaign promise? And I think most importantly that in asking the CIA to follow the rule of law, he is asking the CIA to do its job of defending our country in a way that we need to be defended, in a way that makes us Americans. I think it was his speech today was right on point when he made that point, that to defend the country is to uphold our values.
What do you make of the point moments ago? And I saw that you were beaming to get in, so I'll give you the opportunity to do so now, and then I'll let Cheri respond about the fact that oft-quoted remark that George Bush kept us safe. You were going to say what?
Well, what I was going to say is that he didn't keep us safe on 9/11, and he was warned with pretty explicit memos that there was going to be an impending attack, and that I think he didn't keep us safe in that thousands of Americans have died in Iraq, and I think that that has made this country less safe. It's made the world less safe. And by the way, that's not me talking. That's our defense and intelligence agencies, which issued intelligence reports saying that the war in Iraq made us less safe.
Ridiculous.
That's our intelligence agencies
talking. There's a very small sliver of people in this country who believe that George W. Bush is somehow responsible for 9/11 and could have prevented it. I think this is a ridiculous conversation.
I'm just stating as a matter of fact, he was warned. There were memos that were sent to the ranch in Crawford that he was warned. Bin Laden threatening to strike in the United States. That's the headline of a memo.
And the President of the United States himself trying to blame President Bush for everything. And then we have people who know
there was a memo sent to Condoleezza Rice that said Bin Laden determined to strike in the United States. She said that.
Because
she acknowledged that at her 9/11 hearing. That's a matter of fact. I'm actually shocked that you would say that didn't happen.
I'm shocked that you're sitting here on CNN trying to blame President Bush for 9/11. We've seen people do this.
I'm saying he was warned. I'm saying he did not keep us safe on 9/11.
Let me just cut in here.
I said he didn't keep us safe on 9/11.
And for a while, when he was at his strongest, was the most popular president in the history of the world because of his efforts.
Cheri, to be fair, the point he makes is that there was an adequate warning that was released later on that did say that the United States was warned about this.
You know, I don't
and
know
that we were not kept safe on 9/11 by the Bush administration.
Hold on,
let me ask you this question. Do you think that we were kept safe on 9/11? Cheri, do you think we were kept safe on 9/11? Do you think the Bush administration kept us safe on 9/11? Answer the question. Do you think the Bush administration kept us safe on 9/11?
Would you let me respond for just a moment? Because
answer that question.
David, let her respond.
Answer that question.
Rick, can you get the guy to just
David, go ahead and let her respond.
Okay, answer the question.
What I and so many have said is that he has kept us safe since 9/11. And looking at the
what about on 9/11?
Clearly, we know what happened on 9/11. We were attacked. And
did he keep us safe on 9/11?
After that,
was the administration warned about the imminent attack?
Who took very, very strong measures, made it clear to our allies and those that were on the fence about being our allies around the world that we were going to go after the terrorists.
Did he keep us safe on 9/11? And was the administration sent memos warning about that attack?
His first commitment was to this country and keeping the members of this country, the citizens of this country, safe. He did that from 9/11 on. President Obama
did he keep us safe on 9/11? Did he keep us safe on 9/11?
Policies that kept us safe since then.
Okay, if you don't want to answer the question,
well, here's the point.
I think you're idiotic questions, since we all know what happened on 9/11.